Yeah.
Good afternoon, everyone. Greetings. We have, I just want to make sure we do the introductions first because we have a new member, Jeff Condit, is touring sites in France to determine what CUP conditions they have for their landfills. And he is billing Republic as a business expense. And so he has someone who's joining us, and I'll let her introduce herself.
Thanks, Sam. My name is Cosette Tran Cafe, and I work with Jeff Condit, and I will be sitting in on these meetings and hopefully being helpful, but I will definitely not have the background that Jeff has on the project and the issues. So,
Greetings. Why don't we introduce ourselves? Mark?
Hi, Mark Yeager, Benton County resident, member of the Solid Waste Advisory Council.
Ed?
Ed Patera, Benton County resident. Is that coming through okay?
Yep.
It is.
Good.
Good.
Inga
Inga?
Williams. I'm Benton County staff planner.
And I got a note from Catherine Bisco indicated that she got pulled away into a work meeting and will not be able to attend. So, and wants to know how she should follow up. And we will take care of that. Other than that introduction, I'll turn it over to Inga to take it away.
Actually, if you look at the agenda, I think it says you for the
Well,
DEQ discussion.
The DEQ, okay, let me see if I have the agenda handy here. Here we go. Discussion of developing a timeline of key DEQ decisions about the site and requirements of its operation. So is this the topic? I'm sorry, I was gone since Tuesday afternoon, and I'm just now digging out, as I'm sure you all are in varying degrees. So is this the conversation, Inga, about to what extent, if any, do we consider DEQ permits and their compliance as part of this charge?
Yes.
Okay. So Ed has commented, and just a high level, just to get my brain started warmed up here, is that they, in essence, should be included. Mark, did you have time to weigh in on this email back and forth that went on? I'll call it over the last week.
I have not. So yeah, maybe that so many emails and so trying to work my way through the CUP document and try to get some meaningful comments on there. I wasn't focusing or tracking on the DEQ discussion.
And then Jeff Condit replied to Inga's email saying, in essence, that he supported the exclusion of DEQ permits from the analysis. What happened, just to cut to the chase here, then what happened offline, there was a Darren, Inga, Sam email exchange on this topic. And I'll think out loud about that so everyone's initial positions are sort of on the table. It's my understanding that one of the conditions of CUP conditions, condition approval, was or is, thou shalt comply with DEQ permits, or words to that effect. Is that assumption of mine correct, Inga?
Yes.
Okay, so I think it is fair game to include DEQ permits and their compliance in this summary chart. My goal always has been, for common understandings, is that there's this one document that at least is a roadmap to all of the relevant things Coffin Butte related. And while we will not be in a position to opine that DEQ permit 13 section B was or was not complied with, ultimately that's DEQ's decision. I think having those in one place is important. Now, whether or not they're chronologically placed in the current CUP or current permits, or they're an attachment at the end that just has a DEQ section, is a mechanical matter that we can deal with after we reach some kind of agreement on, placing them in there, and how far, what the purpose of placing them in there, and how far we're taking the analysis.
Yeah, could you explain how far you expect this to go? Because I'm certainly not going to go look up DEQ permits. I can tell you that.
Okay, well, what staff does and what I do and what the subcommittee does is a secondary or tertiary question, depending on whether or not how we're going to do it. It's my understanding that I'm sorry, I'm having a senior moment. The guy from DEQ that's always with us in the work group meetings,
Brian Fuller.
Brian Fuller.
Yeah, Brian Fuller. And Ed and I have been exchanging emails. Again, I'm going to make this up for 2 or 3 weeks, trying to get access to all of these permits. Apparently, some of them are electronically available. Some of them are in, what I'll call banker's boxes in some storage facility, God knows where. So it would take some time to do that, what have you. But they are available, and it may be at a minimum. They will simply say, again, in the chronological flow or in a separate section appendix at the bottom that lists, here are these permits and here's where they can be found. And that may be uploading them to an FTP site. I don't know yet. But that's my general sense of this. I want Ed to drive the next portion of the conversation, because he was the one that was proposing specifics surrounding this. And so please remind me and help the others maybe remind themselves.
Okay. This came out of looking at this, the land decisions, and from my perspective, a number of the land use decisions are superseded by the way they're worded, because they refer to site plans, and the site plans are in the domain of DEQ. They're the ones that are have primacy on those. So unless you know what's in DEQ's records, you don't know whether or not the land use requirement carried through. And I'm sure there's going to be a debate at some point, but it'll probably be in the legal committee that's saying if, who has primacy. But from what I can see, the county doesn't have any authority over operations or design. And that's where a lot of these things end up. So that's why I'd like to see the DEQ documents, so people can look at them and see, well, the county's intent is carried through. So I'm okay with it. It's just to kind of lower the temperature on it. Part of it also is in more recent requirements. The county has said, send me the reports. This is kind of like an audit. Are we getting all the reports? So I'd come up with a tiered approach to getting the DEQ documents. And then I can run it by folks as in terms of priorities. But it's also something that I think can be used for the end of this report, where we're supposed to come with how do you make things better, and we can point to, hey, this is where the process that we have to date went wrong or didn't go as well as we wanted it to. So in the next series, make sure you get these kinds of things coming to you and available to citizens, because right now my understanding is the only enforcement is if there's a citizen complaint. So we have to have some sort of a mechanism for that. I am not proposing that we go line by line and see if they're in compliance. It's just getting the information and what happened when, and see how it relates to volume increases or other timeline issues. Did I give it a useful explanation? Everybody okay with that?
So, Mark, and then I want to hear Cosette, what your team's thoughts are on this. Mark, first, you have your hands up. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Sam, and thanks, Ed. So just a couple of clarifications. So when we're referring to DEQ permits, are we thinking that, because I believe that there's probably at least 3 different categories of permits for the landfill. There is the landfill permit, the permit for operations of the landfill itself. Then there's a Title V permit, which is the air quality permit.
Yep.
And then there's also a stormwater permit, an
NPDES.
NPDES stormwater. Okay. So
It's all of those.
all of those. I think it might be helpful if we're asking DEQ to help us locate and sort of put those documents into a pod. I think relatively easily they could identify any what are titled notices of non-compliance
Yep, all of those are included.
that might have been issued
Yep.
at some point. Okay, so you're also thinking
It
about
was
the
all
notices of
correspondence.
non-compliance.
Anything that's an interaction between the agency and the county, the agency and the landfill, and there's also things that are in there. There's an underlying framework. The Resource Recovery and Conservation Act has, when it's applied, it has a bunch of documents that pop out of there. The one that we've circulated around is a record of decision, but that's the final document that says, thou shalt do these things, meaning Coffin Butte was supposed to do these things. But there's also should have been a RCRA facility assessment and a facility investigation. And those I can't access yet. Those are the kinds of things that build together and show a picture of the site. I think some of the things I heard that citizens have complained about, that should have been addressed and probably was addressed in those documents. They just need to see the light of day. The documents need to see the light of day so the citizens can say, hey, yeah, it got covered.
Okay,
I'm happy.
Well, so just a clarification then for me, I would not expect that the DEQ permits have any requirements in them as it relates to land use compatibility. So
No.
for example, hours of operation of the landfill, that's not going to be covered in a DEQ permit, nor is screening, for example, or noise or lighting. Those things are land use compatibility things that I don't think I'm open to finding out,
yeah.
but I don't think they're going to be included in the DEQ permitted documents.
Yeah, actually, some of them are, and there's let's take noise and odors. There's a whole mechanism put in place of thou shalts from the DEQ to the to the operator saying you're supposed to have a point of contact, you're supposed to keep a registry of complaints, you're supposed to respond in 24 hours, and you're supposed to tell us when that happens. So there's a bunch of things in there that I think people would be happy with if they knew they were there. So we got to get those kinds of things out.
Okay,
Uh,
well, yeah, like I said, I don't know.
But those are
I-
the questions to ask. Yep.
Those are typically not things that are included in wastewater discharge permit, for example, for a wastewater treatment plant. They don't have noise requirements, nor do they have operating hours or well, wastewater treatment plants, they don't have odors, though the landfill will have some odor things because it's primarily related to their Title V permit. But
Yeah, and
okay,
that's why.
thanks.
And that's why when I did the list of whether it was in compliance or not, I've put things, broken up some of the conditions, because some of the conditions are ours and they've been, either met or not met. And that's you can say something to that, yes or no. And the other ones are whether or not they've been superseded. So that's the way my format worked when I tried to come to a decision.
It does seem to me that there would be a question of authority, if you will, as I would not assume from the beginning that DEQ is a higher authority than Benton County when it comes to, for example, limiting hours of operation.
No,
that's not DEQ's
it's not in their
call.
preview. Nope.
Yeah.
It's not in
Okay.
their preview.
All right. Happy to look at it. Well, I don't know how much is there, so.
Because what's the Republic's point of view on this? And I understand you're getting parachuted in here and it's a difficult position for you.
I'll admit to being a little bit confused. I just as to the purpose of requesting all the DEQ permits and other like permitting related information, is that just to have everything available to the public if the public is interested in seeing it? Or is that, and I understand part of it is to have a document that maybe lists all of the DEQ stuff by title and date attached to this common understandings document that we're developing here. But I guess I don't see any real issue with trying to compile all of that, but I don't know if it's like necessary to the work that we're doing here and if it risks sort of sidetracking us from other things. But
well, let me give you an example.
Sort of the purpose.
Let me give you an example of where they become relevant, where the interaction ties them. The county documents have a number of references to returning the land ultimately to a grazing use and a farm use. That's a county decision. DEQ doesn't have a say in that as far as I can see. But yet the DEQ documents provide the design. In even one case, the county documents provided a design, but they said, see my site plan, but the DEQ documents govern. And from what you look at, there's no way that is ever going to go. My conclusion is that it's never going to go into grazing. The slopes are too steep. It's not current practice. There's a conflict right there. And it's good to know that, hey, there's a conflict between the county use and the DEQ rules and come to resolution so people can get comfortable with what we have. So that's where it's really headed towards, is to provide perspective from the way I look at it. Does that help at all? I know you're a lawyer, you can't answer.
Well, no, I feel a little bit, I feel a little bit embarrassed to say I'm just not quite following, and maybe it's my sort of limited understanding of what would be in the DEQ permits, but
Well, Brian sent over two of the most, or one of the most recent ones. It was attached to, it's probably a month ago. If it's helpful, I can find it and send it over to everybody again, so you can see what's supposed to be in a permit.
Sure, because I definitely wouldn't have that if it was.
Yeah, it should be in Jeff's file somewhere.
So I'm getting close to our allocated time for this task, and so let me sort of make a process suggestion going forward with a little bit of context. So last go around, there was discussion, either formally or informally. Formally, by which I mean before the Planning Commission, or informally, just in the community, surrounding what the county could impose and what they could not impose as far as conditions go. And this DEQ versus county dynamic started to play out. The legal subcommittee is in fact working on the distinctions. Here's Benton County's column of things that can or subjects it can or cannot do. Here is DEQ's, and here's where there is potential overlap, or where DEQ has stood down. Benton County has the ability to take it on, like noise. So DEQ controls noise in Oregon, but they purposely have said we're not going to be doing it, so the county can step in and do something with noise. So that issue is being discussed, because the land use decisions, one of the conditions is comply with DEQ. If we don't know what the DEQ is supposed to comply with, what Republic is supposed to reply with under DEQ, the citizens don't know. And in this environment, both sides have made assumptions, assuming the worst, about the other's intentionality surrounding issues related to this. So the goal is to, again, get in one place these documents, and then how far we take them is a secondary step. But first, we got to get our hands on them. As a practical matter, the way to do that is going to be an Ed, Brian, Sam, and any of the rest of you conversation, hopefully, tomorrow or Wednesday, where we can identify how that looks, recognizing they have not entered the digital world yet for a whole bunch of stuff. But it does seem that we should have ready access to the things that have already been digitized and should be living on some database somewhere over Poughkeepsie out there on the cloud. And so what I'm going to propose is to see if I can coordinate that meeting. I'm assuming, Ed, assuming you're available, I understand you're in California, but assuming you're available, is that something you would want to participate in?
Yes, and tomorrow I'll be in a car driving all day, so I'd take Wednesday.
So we'll look at Wednesday morning. Cosette, Mark, Inga, is that something you want to participate in that preliminary call? Probably be a Zoom or something, but.
Yeah, I can't.
Okay, so what I'll do.
And I am interested in this, Sam, so I think it would be helpful.
Ed, Mark, DEQ, Sam, Cosette.
It doesn't sound like something I'd be
Okay.
Come on, Cosette.
useful on.
Okay. So I'll set that up. I'm going to look at Wednesday. Mark, any restrictions or preferences on Wednesday? Same,
Yeah,
Ed.
Let me look here just a second.
So I do have the document that Coffin Valley Landfill submitted with their CUP application. It was one of their submittals that goes into, describes all of the DEQ documents, permits that they need and have So that is a 12-page document. I can forward that to you.
That'd be great.
Wednesday looks okay for me.
Ed,
Yeah, if we could do it after 9:30, it would be best.
no problem. All right, so that'll be the action item surrounding that, and we'll see what that leads and continue the conversation. So any more on agenda one, discussion on developing timeline of key DEQ decisions about the site requirements and its operation? Hearing none, let's go to item 2.
I just sent that to you, so.
Thank you.
Okay. I suppose I need to make this bigger, huh?
Mhm.
So I compiled the comments and I only received document from Mark and Ed. So those are the only 2 comments that I was able to compile. MY is Mark Yeager and EWP is Ed. And so I'm not sure how you want to do this, go through it. With one of our members missing, well, 2 members missing, not to say that you're not useful, because we are supposed to come to a result of the PC approved sorry, the current status of each of these conditions. And half of our folks are not here, so I'm not sure how you want to go through this now.
Is
Let
this,
me just ask a questions for clarification here. So Mark and Ed stuff, you can scroll down. I thought there was a section that we were putting subcommittee comments in. So keep scrolling down.
That's this.
It's called current status.
So
See where it says
comments.
subcommittee? Excuse me.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
there it is. I see it. Got
Yeah,
it.
we had staff, the work group committee comments from the work, from the homework, and then subcommittee. And it's just Mark's and Ed's. Catherine
Okay, so it's
didn't submit anything.
Yeah. And so I see what's going on. The header is just being repeated.
Yes.
Got it. That's what threw me initially because I haven't printed it out. Okay. Well, so Cassette, this is again putting you in a really awkward
yeah,
place.
can I
So
ask, is this the part of the process? I read through the bylaws and stuff where the subcommittee members are meant to be voting 1, 2, or 3.
maybe not today,
Okay.
but we're close to that stage where we're, if you will, landing the plane on. Now, if you could scroll up to we're going to take all these comments that have been made, and then please go up to the top here, and then there is going to be a section that says, current status, been complied with, don't know if it's compiled. And Ed had some verbiage that he sent around. And Ed, I'm trying to find that email. You had a little legend, if you will, about the various.
Yeah, that was in my comments. for this document. So the submittal I made had that in the general notes, and that didn't make it into this version of the document.
Okay.
But
So,
But what you would see there is something that says a compliance opinion. Then there would have been a next line would have been basis. And then the next line would have been explanation. And then the next line would have been once you go all the way down to the bottom, if there were some open items or something like that.
and so let's see if we can find that. It's in an email that I was able to skim last night.
Okay.
Let's see. I'm just trying to find it.
So it's in the notes here on the screen.
Okay, down here at the bottom. Well, that's for this particular.
Could you,
This is-
I can tell you that it's on November 23rd is when Ed's email came in. I think this is the one.
and Inga, if you
Um,
brought up what I submitted, it would be under the general notes.
Actually, I'm sorry. Yeah, I thought it was the November 23rd one, but I don't,
Should be a little bit lower, a few pages in.
There
there.
it is. So we should, before we get into the specifics of scrivening, we need to agree on this or similar or related format. So that little box that we had, which said status, and below that it had majority opinion, consensus, majority, minority. One of these four things, subject to us, having this conversation right now, would be placed in that box. So this legend,
Okay.
if you will, or key, we should place in the front of the document, up top somewhere, and then it'll be clear then when we use the words in compliance or not in compliance or status unclear or superseded by, we'll know what that means. And then let's see, the format for the evaluation of more complex conditions.
So what I was trying to say, I tried to do that format, those items for things that were complex, but for things that were pretty simple, I didn't put in things like explanation notes material. So I didn't always follow the complete format.
And did you use this protocol, Ed, throughout your document?
Yes, that's what I tried to do. Yes.
Okay, and so Inga, what happened to that? You took the body of his comments and put them into that into this section here.
They're under subcommittees, yeah. Because those are,
they're there.
yeah.
Yeah, they
So
run
just-
together in some cases. That's the only
Yeah.
thing that's different. So instead of being a separate line item, like when I submitted it where it says EWP, the next line down was compliance opinion. The next line down was basis. These are all kind of just blended together.
I see.
So I presume
Okay.
that was done to save space. It's just how you want to be able to retrieve the information.
And so this you're considering, I'm sorry for me catching up here, but this is for this you're considering a more complex one.
Yes.
Okay. So, so I think what's going on here, just so we get our formatting and system down, the words compliance opinion, not in compliance, that goes up in that little box above the voting, Inga.
No, we weren't doing voting. We were doing committee comments. So I should say subcommittee comments.
Well, ultimately, the current status is unknown. Let's see. PC decision approved. I guess I should print this damn thing out. These are right now, this is Ed's draft. So if I'm understanding this correctly, this is your draft, Ed, of what the answer to this current status is.
Yes.
Okay.
And because there's so many of them, like 80 odd ones, I needed a format to keep myself on task. So that's what it looked like when I was doing it, just to keep my piece. So the only difference between what I submitted and what Inga has there is kind of just putting things, running them together as opposed to separate items.
Okay. And then Mark, maybe can we look at what Mark's format is for something in this area to see how that fits in so we can arrive at one way to.
I actually used Mark's
Yeah,
document.
I did not do anything formal in the same way that Ed did. So I literally put in comments. This is subcommittee comments. And so this was on this particular one. You can see that my comment just simply was not clear that Republic Services assertion that this condition of approval has been met and is no longer relevant. So that was Republic's comment up above. So I didn't do near the level of research that Ed has done on this particular item. And Ed, I certainly appreciate the work you've done there because it is a critical item. I think that Ed's proposal for formatting is great. It looks just fine to me. Now, how we manage the fact that Ed might believe that this is not in compliance and Jeff Condit might believe that it is in compliance, and whose basis, how we meld all those things together in this document, I'm not exactly sure, but I like the approach that Ed has proposed here. What's the conclusion and what's your basis for each of the conditions of approval? I think that's helpful.
Inga, your reaction or response?
I thought it was quite a bit. Yeah, it's nice. It's a lot of work.
And Ed, have you gone through and done this for whatever the appropriate version is or level of detail for all of these?
Yeah, for the ones that, not for everyone, like the power plant related ones, I didn't do this. The ones that I've heard a lot of energy about, like, where are we getting things from? Like the ones that I address the slopes. And that might be an example of something else if we get down to that. Okay. Why don't we stop at one of these status unclears? Okay, here's one that's I couldn't find documents. I just used prior understanding. So I've got it. It's superseded. I've taken out words that are in the condition, and taken out quotes and tried to interpret it. That's my explanation. And then there's some notes to me that I needed to put more stuff in there. And then I had, oh, how could you resolve this a bit better? And it's a DEQ records, reviewing their records. So it's pretty much everything that there's a condition. I went through and did something like this. Some are longer than others. The geographical location one, that there's a lot of material and that needed the space. Some of the others didn't need the space. Am I answering your question?
Yeah, no, yeah, I mean, like there's a great example of a couple of words in compliance, I mean, and if people approve it, then the words, that could be laid out in this format just fine. So I guess I come back to this issue, and Mark, roughly how many of these did you have time to touch?
Oh, I looked through them all. I got through the entire document.
Okay.
Like Ed, some of the document, some of the conditions of approval for some of the land use decisions were not things that I spent a lot of time studying because they weren't real, his example of the power generation facility. Well, many of those conditions were not anything that I had any real concern about, but things like lighting and noise, for which there were conditions of approval, I did comment on, and primarily focusing my energy on whether or not we know they're in compliance, because there really is no one monitoring or enforcing the condition. That was my primary, looking at the condition itself, trying to understand how we can determine compliance if no one's actually monitoring what's going on. So I would comment on that, but I did work my way through the entire document.
Okay. Well, I am just wondering, as a practical matter, is if Ed and Mark are, get comfortable with this that we have so far over the next X number of days to be defined, then frankly, I think the next step would be to go to Republics and say, what's your response to this? And track change it like we've been doing in the other subcommittees, pulling out comments to the right, saying, see this document that rebuts, what Ed said on paragraph 3, line 2. And then we have something to work through. Because otherwise we will be here until one of us dies, and that's most likely me, given my age. I
beat you.
And yeah,
Age is not necessarily a risk factor.
It is not. Okay, good. I think it ultimately, but I do think, this is, we're on the right track here. So and so, Ed, again, I'm not trying to pin you down, I'm just trying to get facts to brainstorm a solution. How much longer would you like on this so that it's at a point that you feel pretty darn comfortable that I'm making this up. You have like an 80% comfort level, 80% draft.
I'm probably just about at that. I could use feedback. You know, to correct where I think I'm out of ideas on how to get the concepts across. So they need to
Okay.
be tried.
So then I'll ask Mark, how long would you need to go into this document and do what Ed just asked for, which is, you know, where you agree, where you disagree, another way of phrasing it so it's clearer, the constructive input he's asking for. And then we take that date and then it goes to Cosette's team. And you may, Cosette, under the category of you may need to bring in Holly. Is it Holly Doyle? Holly Doyle on this and see what she wants to do. I don't know how much closely she's been able to track this subcommittee. She's been on the other.
Holly
I
is
think-
another attorney.
She is the well, you tell, because what is her title at Republic?
I don't know what her title is exactly, but yes, she's an in-house attorney, so.
She's a general counsel for Republic.
I don't
In
think
essence.
her title is DC, but that
Or,
role.
or like assistant general counsel or something. She's up there in the food chain of the legal department.
I'll say, if I comment briefly,
Yeah.
I like the format that Ed has proposed. It seems, you know, very easy to follow, which is something I appreciate. And I think this process that you're proposing sounds good, like get all of your issues into the document and then Republic can have a chance to address those. And Holly will need to weigh in, and, you know, folks on her team will also need to weigh in just on the factual issues.
Yep.
But I don't, even with me and Holly, I don't think that we will be able to sign off on anything until Jeff gets back. So I don't know what the timelines you have in mind are. And Jeff is only gone until mid-December. So, you know, that'll be here before we even know it. But
Do you know when? December what?
I think he gets back on the 14th, which is.
That's
think
what
that
it
was in
that's
his
what it said
email.
on his bounce back
Okay.
email, his out of office reply said December 14th.
Okay, so and our meeting is on the 15th. So the next work group meeting is on December 15th, as I recall. So, all right. Well, we can only do as much as we can do. And so, Mark, what is a reasonable ETA for you, do you think? And so to, you know, edit, improve, make suggestions to Ed, because frankly, what I'm thinking is if Ed and Mark get on the same page, you don't have to present that to the county and Republic and me with track changes. It will then become the base document. If you want to track change between each other and work offline on this and come up with and give us the, you know, if you will, the quote unquote accepted version after the two of you have got it to the 90th percentile. Again, I'm just speaking roughly. Then we don't have to worry about Republic's track changes on your track changes, and it's just cleaner.
Well, I'm certainly happy to work with Ed. I don't know whether we would do it you know, virtually, or whether we would try to do it in documents back and forth and things like that. I have not had a chance to go through and read all of Ed's comments because we got those from Inga on Friday, but I just haven't had the time to go through.
Yeah.
So I would like to spend some time doing that, and it might be beneficial for Ed and I to talk through each of our comments. I don't know if Ed's had a chance to look at some of my comments, but
Yeah,
How
I
long that
have
would
had a
take?
chance.
You have?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I don't
Um,
know how long that would take, because, there's other meetings happening. Question would be, when are we meeting next? When is the subcommittee meeting next? Is it next week
We
or
haven't
the
set
week after?
dates for the next 2 meetings.
Oh, we have not. Okay, all right. Okay. So Ed, I don't know if you're on vacation and this would be something that would wait until you returned.
No, I'm retired, so I'm always on,
Well,
on a no
that is
schedule.
totally not
Uh,
true. I'm retired too, but that doesn't mean I'm totally
No,
available.
I've just, right now, I've just trying to handle some family commitments.
I see.
So the holiday is over, and we're heading back. So I'll be in Corvallis tomorrow night. And the only real constraint is I try to get some exercise in the morning. That's why I set the
Sure.
9:30 time.
Yeah. Okay. Um, and Sam, what is it that we're doing on Wednesday now? Oh, we're talking about the DEQ permits.
That's the DEQ permit stuff, just figuring out how we get what information in what format.
Okay, well, I think that Ed and I can probably schedule some time to either get together or to, I don't have a Zoom account, so I can't set up a Zoom meeting.
I can do that. I have an
okay.
account, I can do that.
Okay, well, maybe we could do that, and we have this document from Inga, so we can just share it and talk our way through it. It would be helpful for me, and tomorrow's a super busy day, but maybe on Wednesday sometime I'll actually spend a little time and read more thoroughly all of your comments,
Okay.
and in preparation for a discussion.
Like I said, Wednesday, well, we'll know what time Sam has picked, and then we can just do it later.
Yeah, that sounds good. I don't know if it makes sense that we should, it seems to me like we should reach out to Catherine, even though she didn't have time to write anything down. That doesn't mean she doesn't have thoughts or comments. So I don't know, Sam, what your thinking is about how to engage Catherine in this process.
So I will, I think we should invite her to you. You should invite her to your Ed Mark meeting. Whenever you guys agree. So in my first step, hopefully I'll get in touch with DEQ as soon as we hang up from this call, and then I can send out an email, a Zoom link for that meeting, and then you can schedule around that. My sense is she is so busy with her work and her city councilor obligations, and that for purposes of doing this first or this next draft, I think she will be fine with you guys meeting and bringing it together and then showing it to her. But I'm not going to make that assumption without at least inviting her to your meeting, so she can obviously speak for herself. Duh.
Okay.
So go ahead, Inga.
Are we then, sounds like a change to this format is what is going to happen, because now we're going to have a consensus opinion of everyone but me and Republic.
No,
And
I think
then Republic will respond to that consensus. Because that's not how it's set up right now. It's majority, minority, consensus opinion, but that didn't sound like how you were wanting it to move ahead.
no, that's not what I'm saying. The work in the body of the document where Ed has got this new format, depending on if it's simple or and what we need to do is move that out, and bold the sections and more so like Ed had it in his document. And so they're separate lines, so the format just jumps out at you. And then Ed, Mark, and perhaps Catherine will agree on that section. Then it'll go to Republic and Inga to track change, what they think. Then we'll facilitate the actual consensus discussion that will then determine what goes in those boxes at the top, consensus, majority, or minority. This is to get something to push against, as opposed to the option coming in, which was we just read all this and say all in favor, I'll vote 1, 2, or 3. It will be here forever. Does that help? Is that reasonable from your perspective, Inka?
Yes. Just keep in mind that now I had to change this to an 8.5 by 11 document landscape. And if you want to do it, make all of these lines bold and separate. It's going to greatly increase the size of this document.
It gets longer. Yeah.
Yeah, it's already at 85 pages. This is going to be the Magna Carta, clearly, but it's more of a resource document that people are going to go to when someone wants to say what happened, and I'm making this up, in 1984. They know where to go in the document, and later on in the final production, we can annotate whatever that is, link the table of contents. So you just click on it and it goes to page 37 where that is. We can do that, make it more user-friendly then. So let's look at our agenda here, because I think that really takes care of our 350 agenda item as far as next steps go. And so we have these two items: review compliance document, suggested modifications. Inga, what did you have in mind for me to facilitate there versus what's above it in the 60-minute item?
Oh, I'm sorry, what was?
You have an item at 450 for me to facilitate a topic called review compliance document, suggested modifications.
I don't remember what that was for.
Okay. Well, and we need to apparently set some meetings, which we won't forget to do, and then identify action items needed to meet subcommittee's charge. We'll come back to that. But let's go to a couple of the documents, the emails that have come in that are germane. So at least we don't have to resolve them, but at least we can figure out where they go.
Which
Mark,
emails?
well, I'll be reading them off here as I get them organized. So, Mark, the one that's been pending, oh, that's landfill life. Never mind. Your email about the oh no. Let's see. Mark, look at your November 13th, 8:43 a.m. email.
That I sent to you? Or
You sent it to Daniel, me, and Benton County Talks Trash. And then it got sent out on November 16th to the work group.
hold on, just let me.
Yeah, take your time.
Let's see.
I think,
what day you're saying, November 16th?
look at November 16th at 4:15 p.m.
What's the title of the?
Landfill Life Subcommittee, or Subject Forward Landfill Life Subcommittee.
Okay, yeah.
So that's not anything, that topic there, that subject there is really for them. There's nothing here in the CUP thing that we need to
No.
bring to this group's attention. So we'll put that
No.
aside.
Yeah, that's
And
all
then-
landfill life stuff.
Okay, and then Ed, you have 3 things here. Your November 11, 12:36 a.m. to Inga. So 11:11, 12:36 a.m. to Inga. And you gave a bunch of suggestions, highlights of changes that you made. And at the bottom, it's a note to me, it says the question of the county having sufficient resources to be knowledgeable hosts for the landfills of Coffin Butte size seems to be popping up. Is this something that should be addressed in the final work group report? So I wasn't ignoring that. It just was a back burner for me until we got to this stage. Was it your suggestion that that be a topic that we include in this subcommittee?
No,
Would
it's
you
a
like
topic
that one?
for, I think it's a topic for the broader committee, the final report. I think all we do is bring it up, saying, hey, a bunch of these things, to be absolutely clear what's there, it needs somebody paying attention to it.
Well, it certainly everything's going to be brought up to the full work group for the final report. We have to tee up the issue a little bit, and I'm not opposed at the end of this, we finish the CUP document, that there be the CUP subcommittee narrative that says, lessons learned, suggestions for improvement moving forward.
Got it.
And it could be, get sufficient financial and staffing resources to do A, B, C, D, E. So it seems like
Sure.
for this CUP stuff, and if that's part of the task after we
Okay.
finish this document.
Yeah, I think all of those things will be pretty apparent.
Right. So Inga, then going to our final agenda item before scheduling, identify items needed to meet the subcommittee's charge. Just on the running list, or to make sure we tee up, is after this, there'll be a narrative section called lessons learned and suggestions for moving forward. That's only a placeholder for now. Lessons learned and suggestions for moving forward, where this subcommittee can make those kinds of statements, like sufficient resources.
Mm-hmm.
So that'll take care of that. And then Ed, you have look at your November 28th. This is this morning's email. I didn't want to lose that in our discussion today. So this is Ed's this morning at 8:50 a.m. email.
Yeah, ignore the stuff at the bottom.
Okay.
We were starting to draft, and it was just crude notes, and I let it sit overnight, and I forgot to clean it up.
It didn't get better over time.
No,
Okay.
no, not a good wine. Yeah, okay, I've got it
What?
so I can see it.
Why don't you talk to us about that and see if we can attend to some of those things?
Okay. This one, it's probably better for Inga to bring up the I think it's the PC 83 comments in the CUP document, and I can illustrate it. I don't remember what page it was on. It was probably, it's like the second, maybe topic we addressed. Okay, see, it's right there is a good start where it says cross-reference the narrative map in both documents. And what we have is correct. From my perspective, it's completed. There was a narrative that was provided addressing all the conditions, and you can find it in that document. But if you're outside, it's like, what? You know, what is this? What is this referred to? It's how do you make it useful? So that's where my comments came in. We need to expand something like this. I think we should expand something like this to say what are the issues that are addressed in that cross-referencing narrative. And if you go to the document itself, it starts pointing out that, hey, this is being responsive to conditions 1 and 3. So there's a whole lot more information that you really can't get at unless you're looking at that 60-page document. So I was thinking some of those things should be brought into this document so people can follow it. And it's more than just, yeah, the narrative was done and it's in the file, but the narrative explains things like reclamation, like physical layout, like maintenance provisions. And then I've gone through and started, you know, with the excerpts, just suggesting that those be in the conditions of approval, where it says 1, cross-reference the narrative in the map in both documents, and these are the issues that are addressed in the narrative. And then it follows down at the bottom is when I started doing the my compliance opinion. And I broke it up to what was in that document. So there were, to me, design conditions that were go to DEQ, and I give the rationale and the explanation and the references, and then the other ones, I've I've agreed with county in many cases where they've said it's not ready to be done, and I've just tried to explain that too. And where I put in notes, it was when I scratch my head and look at it, I don't see cows on the slopes of the landfill ever. Just it's not just rules, but it's design. You know, I'm sure you've all hiked places where horses have gone or cows have gone, and you've got nothing but ruts. And if you do that on a landfill surface, that's just not, probably not safe. You can end up with penetration, you can end up with gas leaks, you know, there's a whole plethora of restrictions. So it's a suggestion that's probably outside the, maybe belongs in the end of the document, like Sam was pointing out, that, hey, folks, look at this again to see if it's really realistic in the current way you look at the health and safety of a landfill. So that means, you know, a follow-on type discussion at, it's not our level. It's just, hey, Board of Commissioners, you know, everybody's got this expectation that it's going to be returned to farmland based on the documents, and that may not be realistic at this time. Yeah.
Okay.
So again, on 2, it's got the same. No, I think 2 was less. If we scroll down, Inga, that one was, you know, pretty straightforward. But when I read the supporting material, I got 3 things out of it: physical configuration, method of maintenance, and methane. And it, my conclusion on in compliance is different for each one of those. There were, those three factors. And you don't necessarily, well, maybe you get that out of that text above. I'm not sure. Maybe it was just the first one that I was saying we needed to expand the actual wording. This was done last Wednesday, so it's getting to be beyond my memory.
Yes. I don't remember the first part of this meeting.
Okay. So that was one item. The second item, if I can go on, Sam, if that's okay.
Yeah.
You addressed already in talking about tidying up this document with Mark and myself and Catherine, and then letting it go to RSI to look for what they feel about it. The third item was the DEQ records. We've really discussed. I was just
Yep.
pointing out some of the background, why I thought they were important, and how they might fit in with the final report.
Okay. Good. Well,
and that's it.
Well, I think that covers it unless anyone wants to jump on with in response to what Ed just said. Inga?
I have big problem, and I'm glad Ed brought this part up of with including information from a narrative that has no legal basis. The condition was that Republic Service cross-reference the narrative and map in both documents. That is the sole basis of the condition. They did that. It was complete. Staff considered it complete. Adding in information from that narrative and then going in and stating whether you believe it was complete or not complete, or whether it is.
I read that whole thing wrong then, because I thought it was the staff that was writing those.
No, the applicant themselves had to update that narrative. These conditions in the narrative that you see have no legal basis. So as far as did they update the narrative? Yes, they did. It's complete.
Okay, I'll go back and look, because I thought I saw county head, letterheads. Then it's almost a useless condition. Yeah, I
Well,
don't see how it helps anybody that they wrote the narrative.
Yeah, and that's all they had to do.
So let's just pause right there. Let's assume everything, that we've now got this clarified. This is a perfect example of that then going into this add-on piece of lessons learned, suggestions for next time. That a condition that simply says cross-reference it, is not sufficient because ... So it shouldn't be. Inga's absolutely correct. It shouldn't be in there if it has no legal basis, but it should be in. It could be in the other part of the document where it says lessons learned, suggestions for next time.
Got it.
So I just have to jump in
And
here.
then Mark's turn.
Yeah, I need to jump in just for a second because I guess I'm not sure that I understand how it can be concluded that it has no legal basis. I have looked at the 83, that particular land use action. The narrative basically, the purpose of the narrative is to describe what the applicant is proposing to do. And there was some confusion as to, apparently there was a first narrative that wasn't complete. And so then they were told to do certain things in the new narrative, but I don't understand how what they proposed to do as part of the land use action is no longer relevant. I don't get Inga's conclusion that it doesn't have any legal basis. It was the basis of their application to the county to do whatever they wanted to do. How can it just be ignored?
So Mark, you're going through the concept that if you've put it in your application, then you're supposed to do it.
Well, that's what you said, that is what you said you were going to do, and that's what we're approving. Yes,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah,
that's the,
that's my broad understanding of things too. It's so
I know.
another way to do that is to say, and this is what the applicant said they were going to do.
right, and yes, in fact, they did cross-reference the narrative, so technically that little tiny piece of the condition was done, but if the underlying elements of the narrative aren't implemented as they were proposed by the applicant, then what? I mean, that's the whole idea behind the monitoring and enforcement of what action was approved by the county through the land use decision.
Okay.
Unfortunately, there was no condition in here that says that Valley Landfills or Public Service is required to abide by the narrative. Unless it says that, the narrative was something that was reviewed as part of the application. Everyone wanted to see it updated. The information was there to support the approval, but there's nothing in here that said you are required to abide by everything in that narrative.
So you say you're going to do something, but you don't actually have to do it unless the condition of approval says you have to do what you said you were going to do?
Legally, yes.
Yeah, I don't buy that, frankly, but that's just me.
So if you want to frame up the legal question for me to schlep over to the legal subcommittee, I will do that. Because it's clear we're not going to agree on this phone call as to the answer. The question, is, it may be beyond, the words on a piece of paper to see if there's something that's implicit when an applicant says, I'm asking for a permit to do these things and it's approved. It may be implicit that you have to do it, or it may not be. It may not. Inga's interpretation could be the correct one. No, unless there's a condition that says that you shall comply consistent with what you're saying you're going to do. There should be a legal answer to that.
Yeah, and for background, I've seen a bunch of stuff in Deschutes County, and their decisions always lead with that. You do what's in your application.
So we'll have to just tee up the legal question, and I'll schlep it over.
Okay.
Because the other thing I want to cover real quickly before we move on to scheduling is the that introductory paragraph that you all did, and then there were comments on, and then I sent something out a week or so ago, and then comments have coming in on what that track changes on that goes on. It's clear that we're not there yet, and we're going to need more time. And what I think I'm going to suggest is after Ed and Mark and DQ and I meet, and in that meeting afterwards, we have Catherine, that we talk about that section, because there are some differences between Ed and Mark that I'd like to reconcile first before then I send it over to the legal subcommittee. And we should have this subcommittee look at it before it goes to the legal subcommittee. So
Okay.
hopefully we can knock that off on Wednesday as well, but I wanted to mention that. So I think we're left with when are we meeting next portion of this seance?
Yeah, I I was incorrect about not having another meeting scheduled. We have one scheduled for December 5th.
Okay. And you'll send out that meeting notice when you're ready, and then
Same,
do we have?
same time, same place, so 3:30 to 5, is that what we decided?
Yes.
Okay. And you know what, we may need to tentatively schedule one for the 12th too. Because the meeting is on the 15th. And we may have to, and we can always cancel it. So unless anyone objects, I think we should schedule it same time, same place on the 12th, and we can always cancel that. If we've got enough I's dotted and T's crossed since then. Does that work for people?
I'm checking.
I have it on my calendar as our backup
Mhm.
subcommittee meeting day. So we
You
already
do.
talked about, yeah.
Okay, so maybe just send out the notices so we can have placeholders so we don't schedule over them. And then we
Yeah.
can always cancel.
Just back on that conditions thing. A lot of people are really, tied to an expectation of what this place is going to look like when it's done. The final terracing and returning to productive use. And if this turns out to be a fatal flaw in those requirements, the county PR machine is going to be having to work on that a little bit. I've seen all these things of promises kept or promises broken, and blaming it on RSI, and it's going to turn around to be promises made and county didn't deliver. So I'm just suggesting we be very, very exact on how we present this, so we don't get people more riled up than we need to be. Enough said.
Well, one of you take, because you understand the issues better, will one of you take a shot at crafting the question you want me to send to the legal subcommittee?
Yeah, Mark and I will do that.
Okay. Okay. We have 6 minutes left, so we can, if there's any other topic we can discuss, we can do that. Because I bill by the hour, if you want to spend 0.1 minutes criticizing me, we can do that, or we can end the meeting early. Anyone have a preference on which of those options they prefer?
Early,
wanna
I
know
need
if-
to get, oh, sorry.
I was just gonna ask if Cosette had any questions or how she's feeling after, because she's gonna sit in, obviously, in the next 2 meetings.
Yeah, I feel a little bit more up to speed, so that's good. I feel a little bit like I'm sorry that I won't be able to move the process forward as much as Jeff would if you were here, but I think it seems like we do have stuff that we can do while he's gone. So that's that. And I don't think I have any questions at this point. I didn't have a chance actually to review the document with Mark's and Ed's compiled comments in it before this meeting. So I suppose I do have a question. Should I go back and review that now, or should I wait for the next iteration?
I think I would do somewhere just, if you have skim, read, study, somewhere on the skim side of read,
Okay,
enough so that you're generally familiar with the evolution of that document, because many portions of that document pre-existed Friday's write-up. I mean, the stuff that is, the core sections have been around. Again, I'm making this up, for a couple months.
yeah.
It's the work that falls under comment sections. That's the new stuff.
I did review the most recent version that Jeff had.
Okay. Then that's what I was saying for sure. And you do, and the rest is up to you. But I think it is worth, because it's going to be altered. I don't think you have to redline and study it and what have you. But it would be helpful if you, heavy skim / read, so that when the new version comes out, it'll all be familiar.
Okay,
It'll probably just reformatted and some I's dotted and T's crossed.
thanks for checking in, Mark.
Sure.
Right. And make sure he brings back croissants for us for the meeting on December 15th. There's something French and fresh. Maybe it won't be the croissants, depending on when his flight gets in. All right.
He was also going to Switzerland, right? So he can bring back
was
some
he?
chocolate. Yeah,
Chocolate's good.
Yeah, chocolate.
Better, yeah.
Chocolate would travel better. So I'm good with that. Ed, anything else from your end?
No, I'm good. I just think these meetings that are calm and communicative are really good. So thanks.
Yeah. Inga, anything on your list? Last calls? And I saw members of your family walking back and forth, and to the extent you need a familial mediation, I can give you a family and friends discount.
No, they're headed off to a high school basketball game, and I just have to head out after them.
Well, go force and meet it. I hope your team wins. Thank you all very much.
Travel
care.
travel safely, Ed. See you,
Yep.
everyone.
Bye now.
Bye-bye.
Bye.